But another thing about, I have a novelist friend, an English chap, who said, you know, the only work that royalty has to perform is to grow up. They don't have to get ready for a job or any particular skill. Their job is just growing up. Now, you see, a king or a member of a royal family has to really share the total life of his people. He has to know everything. This is the fate now of democratic man. He's becoming royal. He lives in an environment which involves him in everything at once.
Yo, homie.
Every type of knowledge simultaneously. That is a now environmental fact of his mode of existence. His relation to this new type of environment made of information is growing up. Paradoxically, then democratic man is going to end by becoming totally royal. And perhaps a deserved fate. But it's a nice paradox. Now, apropos Watusi and Fru, I'm very grateful to Father for reminding me of that one. If you remember, the old dance floor was a place in which you moved around as if it were a continuum, if there was a continuous space you could move in. The new dances do not require a continuous space. Each space is made by the dancer and is a completely closed space bubble. Space is no longer something that we get into. We make it. Also time. This happened, in Alice in Wonderland. If you look at Lewis Carroll again, you'll find that he took us through the looking glass into this world we all live in now. When you go through the looking glass, you go out of visual space into a space-time world which is made by the occupant. Alice made that world. As soon as she went through the looking glass, she began to make her own space and her own time in Einsteinian terms. Lewis Carroll was at least as sophisticated as Einstein.
Early 50s, you predicted that the world was becoming a global village.
We're going back into the bicameral mind, which is tribal, collective, without any individual consciousness.
But it seems, Dr. McLuhan, that this tribal world is not friendly.
Oh, no. Tribal people, one of their main kinds of sport is sort of butchering each other. It's a full-time sport in tribal societies.
But I had some ideas. We got global and tribal. We were going to become...
The closer you get together, the more you like each other?
Yeah.
There's no evidence of that in any situation that we've ever heard of. That when people get close together, they get more and more savagely impatient with each other.
Well, why is that? Because of the nature of man, or
his tolerance is tested in those narrow circumstances very much. Village people aren't that much in love with each other. And the global village is a place of very arduous interfaces and very abrasive situations.
Do you see any pattern of this in, for example, desires of Quebec to separate?
I should think that they are feeling very abrasive about the English community and about the way the American South felt about the Yankee North 100 years ago.
And is this distancing, is this going to be a pattern right around the world?
Apparently, separatisms are very frequent all over the globe at the present time. Every country in the world is loaded with regionalistic, nationalistic little groups.
But in Quebec, for example, they define it as the quest for identity.
Yes, all forms of violence are a quest for identity. When you live out on the frontier, you have no identity. You're a nobody. Therefore, you get very tough. You have to prove that you are somebody. And so you become very violent. And so identity is always accompanied by violence. This it seems paradoxical to you? That ordinary people find the need for violence as they lose their identities. So it's only the threat to people's identity that makes them violent. Terrorists, hijackers, these are people minus identity. They are determined to make it somehow, to get coverage, to get noticed.
And all this is somehow an effect of the electronic age?
Oh, no. But people in all times have been this way. Mm-hmm. But in our time, when things happen very quickly, There's very little time to adjust to new situations at the speed of light. There's very little time to get accustomed to anything. One of the big violence makers of our century has been radio. Hitler was entirely a radio man and a tribal man.
And what does television do then to that tribal man?
Well, I don't think Hitler would have lasted long on TV. Like Senator Joe McCarthy, he would have looked foolish. He was a very hot character, and like Nixon, made a very bad image on television. He was far too hot a character. Much better on radio or on the movies. Not bad on the movies, which will take quite hot characters. But Nixon was hopeless on TV.
The investigations now of the CIA and the FBI and even our own, God forbid, RCMP, has this anything to do with the electronic age?
Well, yes, because we now have the means to keep everybody under surveillance. No matter what part of the world they're in, we can put them under surveillance. It has become one of the main occupations of mankind, just watching other people and keeping a record of their goings-on.
And invading privacy.
Invading privacy, in fact, just ignoring it. Everybody has become porous. They got the light and the messages go right through us. By the way, at this moment,
right,
we are on the air, and on the air we do not have any physical body. When you're on the telephone or on radio or on TV, you don't have a physical body. You're just an image on the air. When you don't have a physical body, you're a discarnate being. You have a very different relation to the world around you. And this, I think, has been one of the big effects of the electric age. It has deprived people really of their private identity.
So that's what this is doing to me?
Yes. Everybody tends to merge his identity with other people at the speed of light. It's called being mass man. By the way, one of the big marks of the loss of identity is nostalgia. And so revivals on all hands in every phase of life today. Revivals of clothing, of dances, of music, of shows, of everything. We live by the revival. It tells us who we are or were.
Do you feel that the fact that you and I have enjoyed the rewards of literacy, that we are more protected against television than...
Yes, I think you get a certain immunity. Just as you get a certain immunity from booze by literacy. The literate man can carry his liquor, the tribal man cannot. That's why in the Muslim world or in the native world, you cannot, booze is impossible. It's the demon rum. However, literacy also, though, makes us very accessible to ideas and propaganda. The literate man is the natural sucker for propaganda. You cannot propagandize a native. You can sell him rum and trinkets, but you cannot sell him ideas. Therefore, propaganda is our Achilles heel. It's our weak point. We will buy anything if it's got a good hard sell tied to it.
What now, briefly, is this thing called media ecology?
It means arranging various media to help each other so they won't cancel each other out, to buttress one medium with another. You might say, for example, that radio is a bigger help to literacy than television. Mm-hmm. But television might be a very wonderful aid to teaching languages. And so you can do some things on some media that you cannot do on others. And therefore, if you watch the whole field, you can prevent this waste that comes by one canceling the other out.
In 15 seconds, I've got one question for you. How much television do you watch?
Whenever I get a chance. Not too often.